Hi, I'm Jerry Hyde, Youth Services Manager at your Ames Public Library. This is a special edition of Well Read, and I have a very, very special guest with me today, an Ames native, Iowa State graduate, and a very famous author illustrator. So, Derek Anderson, welcome back to Ames.
Thank you, Jerry. I love to come back to Ames.
Yes, Ames is a very special place, and but your history here has been a very interesting history as well. But when you first began to know that you wanted to be an author and illustrator, when was that?
Well, that really didn't happen until college. I mean, I drew my first picture when I was in kindergarten. I went to Roosevelt Elementary School, and this is what I looked like when I was in kindergarten.
You're so cute.
And yeah, I mean, so I drew my first picture in kindergarten, and when I finished it, it was a picture of the Easter Bunny. I still have it.
You had brought it.
I love to show this to kids because it just shows them that my artwork didn't always look the way it does now. And when I finished this, I was so proud of it. I had to give it to the most important person I could think of. So I took this down to the principal's office and I gave it to Mr. Burhow, and his name was Tom Burhow. And Mr. Burhow took this picture and he hung it on his office wall for the rest of the school year. And that's when I knew I was going to be an artist. And it wasn't until I got to second grade, I had a teacher named Mrs. Block, and she gave our class an assignment where we had to draw our own boats. And I decided I wanted to be different, and I made mine a pirate ship, and then we had to write stories about our boats. And I can still remember how incredible it felt. That was my pirate ship. I could make it go anywhere in the world that I wanted. And really, like, that's when I knew that I wanted to tell stories with words and pictures. But it didn't happen until college that I really discovered or rediscovered children's books.
Well, and I know you had a few mentors at Iowa State that helped you along that way and helped you make those decisions. Do you want to share a couple of those?
I had
stories?
So many great teachers along the way, and it's hard to say who influenced what because there were so many. One of my favorite classes at Iowa State was this visual studies class, and it was taught by a man named Dennis Dake, who he's here in Ames. He's retired from Iowa State now, but he was amazing. Like, he really opened my eyes to a lot of creativity, and that's what that class was. It was a creativity class, and then there was also a man named Bill Boone, who many people around Ames know Bill, and he taught this design and society class. And Bill was just this crazy, fun, silly, like he would come in and do talks, do his lectures in rhyme, or be dressed head to toe in white. And I will never forget the day that he walked into our class, and he walks in and the doors fly open. He was a little bit late, and we were all kind of looking at our watches going, what's going on? And even the teacher's assistants were standing up front, and they looked a little nervous, like, what's going on? Bill walks in, throws his bag on the table, kind of almost in a huff, and he walks up and he goes, "I hope everyone in this room graduates from college, goes out in the world and fails." And we were like, what did we do? And then he stops and he says, "Because you'll learn more from your failures than you ever will from your successes." And he's absolutely right. It's true. I found that through my whole life, my whole career, for sure. So.
Yeah, well, failures do help us along the way. And I know you've had some failures because every author and illustrator has rejection letter, or those stories of the rejection letters and that type of thing. But how did you get Little Quack? Because that's what we're doing too, is we're celebrating our Little Quack 15th birthday.
15th birthday.
15 years, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and this was my first picture book. And Little Quack, it came about in an odd way. Like, I was sending work off to publishers for years, getting rejection letters that everyone talks about. And I just didn't seem to be getting any closer to getting published. I would send off my work, and every time that I would get a letter back, I mean, they were ruining my day, my week, my month. And so it wasn't until I kind of changed my mindset about the whole thing, and instead of looking at this and taking it all so seriously, I turned it into a game. And I
Oh.
decided I was going to collect rejection letters. And it changed everything for me, because once I realized that I'm just going to make this collection the biggest that I can possibly make it, and maybe I'll get published along the way. But I wasn't going to give up. I was just going to turn this into more of a game, and I did. And that's when things really began to change. Like I was doing my best work, and it just kept getting better and better. And so in 2001, it was kind of winter of 2000 and 2001. You know, my freelance work got really quiet, and so I spent evenings, weekends, days, I mean, all my time painting all these new pictures, and I had a whole new portfolio of work by the spring. And I called every publisher that I knew in New York that I'd been sending work to and just said, I'm coming to New York, and I have a portfolio of work that you haven't seen, and will you meet with me? And they all said yes. And so I scheduled a week of appointments and went to New York, and I walked into Simon & Schuster the first day, and this editor was looking through my portfolio, and he's flipping through all these pictures, and he comes to this picture of it actually turned out to be Gladys. Mm-hmm. She was a purple gorilla. And he looks up at me and he says, "Are you holding out on me?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "No, why?" And he said, "This is what we want." Well, I just painted this. And I got Little Quack really because of Gladys.
Because of Gladys. Well, thank goodness for Gladys.
Yes, yes.
So, and Gladys is whimsical, kind of like Little Quack is too. So Little Quack was first, and then Gladys came, or were they about the same, or Gladys first and?
The idea for Gladys and both the kind of the initial pictures that I did, the character designs and the story, were written before I got Little Quack. But you also have to kind of show a publisher that that you can do both. You can write and illustrate. And so my first few books were just illustrating another author's text. And this was Lauren Thompson. And before this, I did Ready, Set, Raymond by Vonda Michaud Nelson. Okay. And that was an early reader. But this was the first real picture book. Like they're kind of different.
And now, as librarians and in library conferences, we hear authors and illustrators talk, or, and share their stories. And many of them, I would say like 99% of them, always talk about how difficult it is to illustrate and not meet the author, and the author not meet the illustrator, so you don't collaborate. Did you meet Lauren Thompson when you first?
I met Lauren Thompson, but after I think all the books were finished. All the Little Quack books were finished, and she happened to be coming to Minneapolis on a book tour for another book, and so our publicist at Simon & Schuster got in touch and said, "Lauren would really like to meet you," and so they set up a dinner for us, and it was crazy because here we've created these characters, but we'd never met. We don't talk to each other. As you said, we usually work through a publisher, and really what they want is they want the author to be able to write the text and the illustrator to bring everything they can to the book. Everything, your sense of humor, your sensibility, everything.
And no bias.
And not be influenced necessarily. And so it's our book together, really. So we're kind of parents of these characters in a way.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, kind of. So when we got together, and I walked into the hotel and was just waiting for her down in the lobby, and she came down. It was odd because you're meeting the other parent
right for the first time.
Of your characters. Yeah, so we had a great time, and she's terrific, and it was so much fun. And but you also have no idea what they're like as a person before you meet. You just don't know.
Yeah. So tell us about Little Quack, because when I look at Little Quack, and then we've been reading Little Quack's New Friend in Storytime this week, and it was of a fabulous story of people that are different becoming friends, or acceptance. And Little Quack is so accepting of others, and I thought it was very pertinent for today's world, as it was back then, about accepting people's differences and your differences and that. So how did you form Little Quack's character, knowing that that's what he was all about?
I mean, really, I begin every book almost the same way, where I have to look at pictures of the real animals, and eventually what you do is you kind of push that aside and free yourself to create. You just have to know what shapes, what colors, what does a duck's beak look like? What does their tail look like? You have to know all those things. But ultimately what I had to do, I did the very first painting I ever did to show Simon & Schuster was a painting of Little Quack and Mama Duck. And actually, it looked very much like this one. This is not the very first picture that I did of Little Quack, but it looked a lot like this one. And I sent it off to my editor, and she called me right away. She was so excited, and she said, "Derek, this is amazing. We love it," And she said, "But all the ducklings can't be little yellow fuzzy ducklings. We won't be able to tell them apart." And so we were talking about different ways we could tell them apart. Like she said, what if we put hats on them or glasses? But I really wanted them to be able to be told apart the way people can be told apart, with different sizes and weights and hairstyles and colors. And so I went and did another painting. First of all, she wished me luck. And I went into my sketchbook and I did this really rough sketch. And when I visit schools, I like to show this picture. And it's very rough, but it got the idea across. And I basically made the ducklings all look different.
And they definitely have their own little
Some are
personalities.
taller, some are shorter, some have, Whittle, I gave her a flower on her head. Waddle, I kind of gave bedhead, so he's got feathers off the back of his. Piddle is in the middle, I gave her kind of curls. Puddle's just cool, he's kind of got the punk hairdo going, yeah. And Little Quack is the star of the show, so I made him the smallest and most endearing. And once I sent that to them, then they knew, they said, this is it. And then it was a really freeing thing, because those are clearly, you're not going to see ducks like this out in walking down the street or in the wild.
Waddling down the road.
However, we still know they're ducks.
Right.
And that's the key. You want to be free creatively to do all kinds of things.
That's very exciting, and you can see the love in their eyes, with mom, So we all know that we love Little Quack and Whittle, Waddle, Piddle, and Puddle. We went on then from that. So you started writing as well. Started being published as a writer, and so
Exactly.
I know you've had quite a few of those. One of the more recent ones is 10 Pigs, the epic bath adventure. And so how did he come along, that main character?
Ideas come in all kinds of different ways. In 10 Pigs, the clouds opened and this gift was delivered to me. It literally was a gift. It came to me, the idea fully formed. Not necessarily the text of the book, but the idea with this pig wanting to just take a bath by himself with his rubber duck, and then all these other pigs coming and kind of, getting in his way, getting in the way of him enjoying his bath. And so over a few walks, I love to go for walks with my dog, and these, it just kept coming to me, like how this should unfold and exactly the telling of it. And I wrote it very quickly and showed it to my editor, and he said, "I just can't believe this hasn't been done." and so anyway, I loved doing that book.
Yeah, this is a real fun book. I love doing it in story time, and especially with kids that don't know the ending.
Yeah.
I mean, many of the kids do know the ending, and it's wolf.
Yeah.
I told the end.
That's
of the
okay.
story.
That's okay.
But so these two are really cool characters, but I understand that you have some new characters coming out in the fall. So tell us a little bit about your newest upcoming book.
So my new book, I have two books coming out in September, and they're about these two characters named Croc and Allie. And Croc is grumpy, and he's a crocodile. And Allie is kind of this bright light, this happy-go-lucky, super fun character. It's funny, I came up with this idea a long time ago. I mean, it was probably 8 or 9 years ago. I came up with this idea for these Croc and Allie characters, but I didn't really know anything about them, and I just kind of pushed it off to the side and was making other books. And one day, a few years ago, I sat down and started sketching just to see what they would look like. And I didn't get them right at all. Like, it took a little while to tweak and make one a little bit taller and make his snout a little bit longer, and figuring out exactly how they would be different and how they would be alike. And these books are really about their personalities. It's not so much necessarily about the plot. Each book has 3 stories in them, but it's all about the interactions between this grumpy crocodile and this happy-go-lucky, very funny alligator. So the first book is called Friends Forever, and the second book is called Fun, Fun, Fun. And they come out September 25th, and I couldn't be more excited.
So it's so fabulous. We love having your books in our collection and sharing them in our story times at the Ames Public Library. But I also know that in my story time, or in all of our story times and programs, we have the young person that's in the audience that would love to be an author or be an illustrator. What kind of words of wisdom would you tell them what they should do to work for?
I mean, one of the most important things is for kids to just really, play, because it takes imagination, and my job is really in a lot of ways to play. But one of the things I always tell kids is, once I knew that I wanted to be an artist, and that I wanted to be a writer, whether it was going to be in comic strips, which early on I thought I would probably be a cartoonist, or whether it's in books, you have to believe. You have to believe. So when I believed that I was a writer and I believed that I was an artist, it wouldn't matter then when I tried to draw something and it didn't turn out, because I knew I was an artist. And so you learn from it, you push it aside, and then you try again. And that's how you grow and keep getting better. I mean, anyone that's seen my How the Easter Bunny Saved Christmas book knows this is not how I draw the Easter Bunny.
No.
Today, it's changed a lot, but it's because I kept trying things. I kept trying new things, made mistakes, had failures along the way, but always pushed beyond those failures. They were never roadblocks. They were obstacles that you move past. And whenever you do that, when you believe, you don't give up. You keep after it, and and when people were telling me that, publishing's hard, there's a good chance that you're not going to get published, that didn't matter to me, because I believed, I knew that this could happen, and I didn't have any connections in publishing. I didn't know any authors or illustrators, but I believed that it was possible, and I believed that I could be a good author and a good illustrator, and now I've made over 25 books.
Yeah. And they're very popular and very, very well read across the country. So you've heard it here. Believe in yourself, become your writer, become an illustrator, be who you need to be, and enjoy our books and enjoy Derek. And until next time, happy reading.